Princess Anne's been working incredibly hard to save the children fund, and I'm her biggest fan because what she crams into a day I could never achieve. And we've always hit it off very well, and I just think she's marvellous.
If anything ever happens to me, please watch over Harry. That was the sentence. Not shouted, not written in a letter, not spoken in front of cameras. Just one quiet sentence Princess Diana reportedly said to Princess Anne during a private moment at Balmoral in the summer of 1997. Weeks before Paris. Weeks before the tunnel. Weeks before the world changed forever. And according to palace insiders, Princess Anne carried those words for 29 years without telling Harry. Think about that for a second. Nearly 3 decades of silence. Nearly 3 decades of carrying the final concern of a dying mother. And then one phone call changed everything. Because this story is not about another royal fight. It is not about Camilla. It is not about titles, or ceremonies, or palace politics. This one is different. This one is about Diana's voice somehow reaching her son almost 30 years after her death. And the person who made that happen was Princess Anne. Today, we are diving into one of the most emotional stories to come out of the royal family in years. Accounts from journalists and insiders reveal that Anne personally called Prince Harry ahead of Peter Philip's wedding in June 2026, not through aides, not through lawyers, not through palace staff. She called him herself. Now, what many people do not know is that Harry and William reportedly have not spoken properly since 2022. 4 years. 4 years of silence between the two boys who once walked behind their mother's coffin together while the whole world cried watching them. 4 years. That number matters because grief changes shape over time. At first it is loud. Then it becomes quiet. Then it becomes distance. And somewhere inside that distance, the relationship between Diana's sons broke apart. According to royal sources, King Charles has quietly tried to repair things behind the scenes. There were whispers about invitations to Balmoral, reports about possible peace talks, small gestures. But insiders say Prince William has remained deeply resistant. The interviews, the Netflix series, the memoir, the private conversations made public. Sources close to the palace say William has not forgotten any of it. And honestly, that changes the atmosphere around everything now, because Peter Philips's wedding is no longer just a wedding. It is potentially the first time William and Harry stand in the same room in years. That alone would have made headlines. But then Anne stepped in. And what happened next shocked people inside palace circles because it was not political. It was deeply personal. According to insiders, Anne told Harry about a private conversation she once had with Diana during the summer of 1997 at Balmoral Castle. The timing alone feels haunting now. Summer 1997, just weeks before Diana died. Accounts from people familiar with royal life say Diana and Anne had developed a quiet respect for one another in those later years. The media always tried to paint them as opposites. Diana, the emotional rebel, Anne, the cold traditionalist. But palace staff reportedly saw something else entirely: mutual understanding. Because Anne respected honesty, and Diana, for all the chaos around her life, was brutally honest about how she felt, especially when it came to her sons. And this is where the story changes completely. According to insiders, Diana told Anne she worried most about Harry, not because he was weak, not because he was incapable, but because he felt everything too deeply. William will survive the palace. Harry needs someone in his corner. That line reportedly stayed with Anne for decades, quietly, faithfully, no interviews, no leaks, no public sympathy campaign. She simply kept the words safe. And many are questioning how someone could carry something that emotionally heavy for nearly 30 years without ever using it publicly. That is the part people cannot stop talking about. Because in a royal world full of leaks and strategic briefings, Anne did the opposite. She protected the secret, until she believed Harry truly needed to hear it. And according to palace watchers, that moment finally arrived before Peter Phillips's wedding. But there is more to this story, because the timing matters. The wedding itself is already emotionally loaded. Peter Phillips has always been close to both William and Harry. He reportedly remained neutral during the family tensions. People remember how Peter walked between the brothers during Prince Philip's funeral in 2021. That image stayed with many royal fans. 3 men walking together through grief while the entire world watched their silence. Now imagine the atmosphere. In June 2026. The church. The cameras outside. The family tension hanging in the air before anyone even arrives. And somewhere inside all of that pressure, Anne decided enough was enough. According to insiders, she refused to let Diana's sons stand inside the same church pretending the other did not exist. So she made the call. And what many people inside palace circles reportedly found most emotional was not what Anne said. It was Harry's reaction. Sources claim Harry went completely quiet after hearing Diana's words, silent for a long time. Then finally he asked Anne one question. "Why did you wait so long?" And Anne reportedly answered with something that now has royal watchers emotional all over again. She said she had been waiting for the moment he needed to hear it most. Not years ago, not during the interviews, not during the anger. Now, right before he would see William again, right before Diana's sons stood in the same room for the first time in years. And honestly, that changes the entire emotional weight of this story, because suddenly this is not about gossip anymore. It is about timing. It is about loyalty. It is about one woman protecting another woman's final fear for nearly 3 decades. And this was only the beginning. To understand why this phone call hit Harry so hard, you have to understand something about Princess Diana that the palace never fully knew how to handle. She understood emotions before protocol. That was always the difference. Royal insiders remember how Diana approached motherhood completely differently from previous generations. She hugged her boys publicly. She knelt down to speak to them at eye level. She took them to amusement parks, fast food restaurants, hospitals. Normal places, normal experiences, and at the time that shocked parts of the royal institution, because the monarchy traditionally believed distance created dignity. Diana believed love did. What many people do not know is that Diana reportedly worried constantly about how royal life would affect Harry emotionally. William was the future king. There was structure around him, purpose, direction. But Harry was different. More emotional, more impulsive, more openly affectionate. According to journalists who covered Diana closely, she often described Harry as the softer-hearted one. And palace insiders say she feared the institution would eventually harden him. That fear feels painfully relevant now, because when you look back across Harry's life, there is a pattern. The loss of Diana at 12 years old, the years of public scrutiny, the military service, the party scandals, the constant comparisons with William, then eventually the interviews, the royal exit, the public war with the palace. Each chapter seemed to push him further away from the system Diana feared would overwhelm him. And according to insiders, Anne saw all of it happening quietly over the years. Now here is what makes this even more interesting. Princess Anne and Harry were never publicly known as especially close. The media rarely focused on their relationship. Anne stayed private. Harry lived loudly, but accounts from royal staff suggest Anne always watched carefully from a distance. Not dramatically, not emotionally, just consistently. That is very Anne. People inside palace circles often describe her as one of the hardest-working royals, direct, practical, uninterested in games. And strangely enough, those qualities may have been exactly why Diana trusted her. Because Diana spent years surrounded by people who managed appearances. Anne managed reality. There is a difference. Accounts from former palace staff reveal that Anne rarely involved herself in public family conflicts. She preferred silence over spectacle, which is exactly why this recent situation feels so important. Because for Anne to personally step in now means something had reached a breaking point. And honestly, many royal watchers believe that breaking point was the complete collapse of communication between William and Harry. 4 years without speaking. Think about how unnatural that feels considering everything those two experienced together. Their mother's funeral, military service, their public charity work, the years they once presented themselves as inseparable. Then suddenly silence. And according to insiders, King Charles struggled to repair it. That part of the story keeps bothering royal observers, because Charles reportedly wanted reconciliation. Sources say he considered inviting Harry and Meghan to Balmoral as a peace gesture, but William allegedly opposed it strongly. Accounts from palace aides claim William viewed reconciliation attempts as rushed and emotionally dishonest, while trust remained broken. And whether people agree with him or not, insiders say his anger never truly faded after the memoir and interviews. Every private detail becoming public. Every family disagreement turning global. Every wound reopening again. The palace atmosphere reportedly became emotionally exhausting. And while all of this happened publicly, Anne stayed mostly silent. Watching. Waiting.